Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Race.dev Hacktoberfest Help Desk. If you are new to the show, the Hacktoberfest Help Desk is your resource to Hacktoberfest to help you land more pull requests. Whether you're stuck on a problem, you're trying to get into open source in general, you've got an issue you can't crack, or you're just looking for cool projects, we are here to point you in the right direction. If you haven't been here before, you can ask questions anytime in chat. If you have been here before, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. This is our second show of the day, but we do have another show coming up later on. I'll run through what we've got coming up for our last show of the week in a little bit. But before that, some admin and some things to run through. First of all, as I said, you are very welcome to post in chat as we go along. We will answer your questions as we go if we can. We will definitely try and get you answered before we leave the show. If you want to share any links or you have anything to post or anything to share with us, you are very welcome to do so. We highly encourage you to share your projects, that kind of thing. Just be warned, the internet is a scary place, so we have a moderation bot running. So if you want to post a link, just give me a heads up in chat at RaiseDevs, and I will add you to the allow list so you can post that link. Because at least once a show, we get a visit from the spam bots, so we have links turned off by default. So other than that, where can you find us? So if you want to submit a question to the show, as I said, you can ask in chat, but if you've got a bigger question or you don't want to ask right now, or you're still working on it, or something comes up later, you can submit it in advance to raise.dev Hacktoberfest. When you go to that site, you'll see a place to submit your question. We'll review your question, send it to our guests, they'll have a look at it, then they'll come and answer it live on the show, and we will drop you the answer in an email with a recording from the show. Super easy. You can find our schedule at twitch.tv RaiseDev schedule. As I said, we do 3 shows a day all throughout October. That schedule is updated weekly, so currently you're only going there to see the show that's on later tonight. But over the weekend, I will update it to be the schedule for next week as well. But at the end of the show, stick around. I'll do a preview of what we've got coming next week and the special guests we have on next week, and run you through what to look forward to. So other than that, the last thing for me to say is, if you haven't heard of Raise.dev before, we are pretty new. We are here to help you level up your developer career. So whether you're trying to get your first dev job, or trying to move from mid-level to senior, or you're trying to do a career change, anything like that, our expert coaches will help you get the experience you need to make that transition. And you can find out more about us and sign up for our early access program at raise.dev. We are completely free whilst you're in early access, so you can sign up to meet one of our amazing coaches today. So, that's all the things. Let me add on our special guest for this show. Please welcome Shai to the stream. Hey, Shai.
Hey, everyone. How y'all doing?
I hope they're doing great. Let us know in chat. Would you like to introduce yourself to the folks, for the people who haven't encountered you in the wild?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Shai. I'm a developer evangelist at Contentful. I actually used to get to work with Joe at Joe's, well, not your last job, my last job at MLH all those years ago.
Yeah.
I make cool websites and silly robots, and often I use the Contentful API, and often I don't. So.
I think one thing that's really fantastic is every now and then when you move, you just get like the peak of you behind you, which I think sets the mood for the kind of stuff that Shai makes. Really.
Well, it's important, with all the streaming that we're doing these days. You always have a reflection behind you, and you want to kind of hide it. You can kind of see like the computer screen when I shift my head.
Yeah.
And so right now I have it blocking the key light. So there isn't just a giant reflection. I see that you're hiding your apartment because you've got all those great plants and a lovely laundry machine that saved me a couple times.
Dying. Yeah, which is also important to note that I wasn't in the apartment when it saved you. We were not here.
Yeah, good to know. If you know Joe in the real world and you are stuck in Amsterdam and you've been on the road for 2 weeks and you need a place to do your laundry, Joe is the person to go. But explicitly, you need to be friends with him beforehand, before the trip to Amsterdam.
Hey, if you're in our chat, you're friends with me. We will find you a way to get a key to do laundry. So today on the show, we're going to chat about Shai's career a little bit of talk about developer relations, which we've done a little bit today as well, if you missed the show with PJ earlier. And then we're going to do our favorite game, which is making our poor guests review their old code. And we do this very much in the spirit of growth. We are, as I said, here to help folks level up in their careers. And we're all doing code differently at different parts of our career. So Shai's going to walk us through, I believe it's your first Contentful app, is that right?
Yeah, so it's about 3 years old now.
Cool, okay. And talk about how he would do it differently today. And I imagine some things with Contentful have also changed, and there's new features I've taken advantage of as well. Cool. Yeah. So I guess let's start. So you mentioned working at MLH in the past. What was like the start of, I guess, your developer journey?
Yeah, so my parents really hated technology. They're like really
Amazing.
classical, like old school, like Indian folks, and so
Right.
they wanted me to do the whole doctor thing or like medicine thing.
Right.
And my childish or teenage act of rebellion was to get into computers, which is
Yeah.
really lame in retrospect.
Well, I
All
mean,
my
at the
peers
time, it
were
was
out
very
like,
cool, I guess.
I don't know. I could have been out partying and drinking as a 16-year-old. Instead, I was staying in and like writing Visual Basic.
Right. I don't know. That
Yeah.
sounds pretty punk rock to me.
Yeah. And so I got really into it. I kept going with it and ended up, at uni for it. And um, started doing internships and software internships. And I kind of always hated the internships that I was doing. I started off working for the Air Force, and then I moved over to a government contractor, and then I moved over to like enterprise. And in my head, I always had some sort of justification to myself for why I didn't enjoy these gigs. It was,
Right.
I don't like working for the government, or I don't like working as the only programmer, or, this is a giant, 1,000-person corporation. I hate that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my last internship, I ended up in New York with the Hack and Y Fellowship, and I was doing. I was at a startup, great startup, Datadog, and I actually use Datadog fairly regularly. So, and I liked most of those people there. And I think I just kind of hit this point where I realized that like the day-to-day of being a software engineer just wasn't for me. Like I hated doing feature requests. I hated bug fixes. I didn't enjoy being on Jira. I didn't really like the like whole...
I'll hold in the Jira shade, but I sympathize with that one.
Yeah, like the whole, like there's not a ton of creative freedom, I feel like, when you first start out as a software engineer. You kind of have to prove yourself.
Plucking tickets and doing what you're told. Yeah.
You gotta earn it a little bit. And I just really didn't enjoy it. And I just gotten off like a year of the hackathon circuit with I know you all had MLH earlier.
We had quite a few MLHs, in fact.
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of hackathon projects, and had really like been enjoying the like creative freedom of like just building whatever the hell I wanted and working with like all sorts of different people and interesting people. And I was getting on stage a lot and I was presenting it. And so for me, it was always a question of like, I really enjoy that part. How do I make that my kind of go-to? And I started out by working for MLH, which was a lot of fun, but you didn't really get to write as much code as you wanted. And then at the end of that, I needed to mix things up and do something different. And I ended up at Contentful, and it's been a really great fit. I have a lot of freedom to kind of just build stupid websites and silly robots that use the Contentful API. And I get to write about them, and I get to talk about them, live on streams like that. And so it was, for me, it was kind of a long journey of like getting to the thing that I could actually enjoy day to day.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's one of the things we like to do on the show is like show people kind of alternate paths or like ways to use software skills aren't necessarily software engineering. Oh, hey, Mike Elsmore's in the chat. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
It's been the longest time. So we like to like show those alternate paths, and I think what you said there about like creative freedom is a really big one, because like we see, like, I mean, obviously, like programming and programming languages and like the web is such like a powerful creative tool, and we've heard from a lot of people on the show who have changed into programming from like arts and other like careers where they have a lot of creativity. So I think that's a super important point. So when you said like you're working on a lot of, I guess, like silly websites and robots, like what kind of stuff have you been doing?
So I'm a huge fan of the Raspberry Pi platform. I've been working with I've been like specking out a bunch of like webcam replacements. John on stream a couple of weeks ago kind of looked a little cruddy because he was using his built-in webcam on his MacBook because I have his webcam and I'm using it right now, and he wants it back, and so I need to figure out.
I got pre-warned about that as well.
Yeah. I joined the stream and I was like, oh, let's compliment him and maybe get him to get off my back. But no, he still wants his webcam back. And so
for those of you who haven't realized, COVID has like quadrupled the price of webcams, and it's like absolutely silly to buy a webcam right now. So Sorry.
Webcam and graphics cards are just impossible to find. The two things I want, and I can't have either of them.
I'm also waiting for a 3080 right now. It's a struggle.
Yes, I've been specking out a couple projects with the Raspberry Pi high res module or the high res camera module, because then I can justify buying one and then maybe using it as there's a way to like mess with the bus and get it basically turning it into an IP camera over either web or over USB.
Good.
Yeah, I mean it's a really good camera model, and it's only like 50 quid. And I already have 1 million Raspberry Pis, so the Raspberry Pi is basically paid for. It just takes 30 seconds to boot, which is the one downside, but I think I'd live with that. So
amazing. I didn't like you can this camera module has lenses as well. What the
hell? Yeah, I think it's just like a Canon mount, like a standard Canon mount, which is pretty nifty. Although it's really cool that like a lot of the like DSLRs are turning into webcams, but that's like $1,000 purchase right there.
Yes. Yeah. I actually like this is the now we're just getting the streaming nonsense. I'm very sorry. This is the Logitech C920, which is like the webcam everyone has, and I've spent so long being like, if I want to get better than this, I have to get into DSLR land, but I'm really not willing to spend that much money on a camera. So I'm just going to crank up the white balance and pretend it looks fine.
I feel you on the equipment game. So we just we're prepping for, we have a really cool customer conference coming up for Contentful on the 29th called Fast Forward. It's free if anyone wants to check it out. But Stefan in the chat, who just said hi, him and I have been working together on our talk. We're going to be doing some live coding, and so we've just like completely been specking out like since we've got to be on a conference, our game, and we do a bunch of live streams on Tuesday. And so now I have like a handheld microphone, like I'm a a TV.
Now it looks like it looks like you're a correspondent for some news channel. Tuning in live from New York,
because this is the best microphone that we can get, because all the good USB microphones are sold out in New York. So when I opened the box, it had an XLR cable, and I was really worried for a second.
Oh, it's not XLR. That's what I was about to ask.
No, it's XLR and a USB-C.
Amazing. That's super cool.
Yeah, the gear is hard. It's real, like the hunt for it.
Yeah. Thanks, COVID. But then again, we wouldn't be doing these wonderful things if it wasn't for it. So I guess it's a nice time to buy toys. Yeah. So been doing a lot of live streams. So Fast Forward, I've just posted a link to. You said it's free. So what's happening at Fast Forward?
Yeah, so it's our first ever Contentful customer conference. We've been wanting to do like a celebration of the Contentful community for a long time, where we bring together a lot of our developers and I'm kind of making an assumption here that people know what Contentful is. Is it okay if I give a little plug, or is that?
Please, absolutely do. I mean, we're looking at a Contentful app, so you're gonna have to do that anyway. Yeah, please do. The race.dev website, by the way, our blog is built on Contentful, so you're very welcome to talk about it.
So Contentful is a headless CMS as an API. So CMS stands for Content Management System. So it's kind of like a little website where you can go in and you can make content. For a developer, you can define what that content is. So maybe you have like a page, maybe you have like a block or a component of a page. And then a non-technical person can come in and they have like kind of the interface that they need to be successful. A lot of non-technical folks are really used to WordPress, but WordPress is kind of miserable for developers. You've got to learn PHP, or you've got to learn the WordPress way of doing things. And this is kind of a best of both worlds. Developers get to build stuff in whatever they want, and they get content in a JSON object over an SDK or GraphQL or just straight up REST, and a non-technical person has the experience that they need to be successful. So for us, we've always got these two audiences that we want to highlight and we want to showcase and we want to celebrate. And so we've got the developer group, which is kind of what I get to work out and get to hang out with, is a developer audience as part of the DevRel team at Contentful. Then we also have kind of our non-technical folks, our editorial teams, our writers, our content people, strategists that are hanging out and doing the content production, and so making sure that they also can be celebrated is really great. And so the conference is kind of a good way to bring both of those two things together and highlight the work that our community has been doing, and it should be a lot of fun. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I see you've got like the inspirational stage and the builder stage, which I guess is like very much the separation of those
Builder
two
stage is all the DevRel team, so
Nice.
and our learning services team as well, but it's mostly the DevRel team. So that's what we're excited about.
And you're speeding up development using GraphQL is yours.
Yeah. So GraphQL is actually really cool. Have you had a chance to mess around with GraphQL at all?
I did when I was at GitHub. I haven't done it since I left GitHub.
GraphQL is really awesome. I'm a huge fan of it. For folks who haven't used it, I really encourage checking it out. It's so with a traditional REST API, you know how you would have to you'd make a request, and you get your body back, and that body would have a lot of different things in it that you probably wouldn't use, and if you want to maybe cross-reference things, you've got to hit different endpoints.
And do multiple requests.
Yep. And it's a little slow, and you're getting a lot of junk that you're ignoring. And GraphQL is really nice. It's like a much more streamlined way of like querying data. You go in and you define, hey, I want these things, and it's a single query because you can kind of drill down and like do links across different stuff. And if you want to like filter by IDs on a different field or something, you can do that all in one go, and then the response is exactly what you asked for. So it's tiny in comparison to your traditional REST. And so we've been
like a really cool ecosystem around it at the moment. It's really interesting projects, like and tools to use. We had Ender Phelan on the show last week, maybe this week. Who even knows anymore? He's a maintainer on GraphBack, which is a like server and client for GraphQL, and he walked us through that project and kind of gave us like a intro into making a GraphQL app with GraphBack. So that's in the Twitch channel. If you're intrigued by what Shai is saying, want to give it a go, you can go look for that show. Ender Phelan. Super cool. So you're going to be talking about what are your, I mean, not to steal your thunder for your talk, but what are your like tips for speeding up GraphQL development?
Yeah, well, so the story is Stefan and I are a little competitive with each other. Right. I mean, you know me, how I can get unhelpfully competitive at times.
I played Super Smash Bros. With you a couple of times.
And so Stefan and I, we've been working together for like 3 or so years. He took a year off, I took 3 months off, but we've been working together for quite a while. Right. It's been about the same amount of time at Contentful. And so the two of us are in this little blog competition to see who's the best, or sorry, not the best writer, who's the most prolific writer. So who has the most blog in our blog posts. And so we kind of use GraphQL to figure out which of the two of us is the winner there. And I'm not going to spoil it, but if you're looking for some quality competitive content, that's what you're in for over on the builder stage for Fast Forward.
That's amazing. Very exciting. Cool. So I guess we've spoken a little bit about Contentful, spoken a little bit about like the content that you're putting out and the cool things you get to build. Should we jump into one of those things that you've built?
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Is this
let me go ahead and move you off my main screen so it doesn't come through in the screen share.
Don't get the inception going on. Let me know when that's good to add.
Yeah, I think you're good to go.
There you go.
So speaking about kind of awful websites to build, I'm obsessed with the I know you know this. I feel like I've brought this up to you in front of you enough times, but you could explain the origin of Japanese superheroes. And
literally, whenever it comes up, I'm always like, Shai has told me about this. I am aware of this thing.
So I'm obsessed with Japanese Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. You can see the helmet right there.
Yeah. Which most people will know. I guess most of our viewers will be familiar with as Power Rangers, right?
It's like, Power Rangers, yeah. So Power Rangers is 25 years old, and it originated because this guy Haim Saban, who owned a music production company at the time, and so he's the guy who made like the Jetsons theme and the Flintstones theme, was just kind of flipping around TV in Japan, and he found this show with a bunch of people in costumes fighting monsters, and he's like, this is brilliant, and he licensed it. That's Super Sentai, and he brought he edited out the kind of Japanese folks and recompiled it all together with an American audience, and that's how we get Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And I'm unhelpfully obsessed with the Japanese version of the show. I own a lot of it on DVD. All of what's legally available in America, I own on DVD.
Amazing.
And so yeah, my first ever Contentful project was I built a little fan site. So we can click and we can watch some of the videos. And I don't know if the sound is coming through, so I'm just gonna mute it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh god, this is giving me such nostalgia.
So
the motions.
Oh man, they're so cool.
There we go. And yeah,
so cool.
It's so bizarre how like this would have been a scene in the American show, and they just like changed the civilian mode, as you put it in the text. God, it's so weird. I was so obsessed with Power Rangers, and also you've got Kamen Rider up there as well. That was another one. I think we spoke about this before. Kamen Rider was another one that had like a Western-ified name, right? Like it was like Bugman or something. I can't remember.
Yeah. They're little bugmen. They tried to bring it over. So the first one's based on a grasshopper, and they kind of loosely are based on. So the last one that just finished airing, 6-7 weeks ago, was another grasshopper. It was like a grasshopper technology thing where I don't know. They were like little AI robots, and they were becoming sentient, and it was like a whole like, well, human, should they have human rights because they're robots and we built them, but like also they're making their own decisions, and hard stuff for a kids show. But it's a great show. It's that one's like 46 years old or something ridiculous like that. And
I distinctly remember some TV show that had like something looking very similar to like grasshopper thing, and I can't remember this.
So they did a backdoor pilot for Kamen Rider. They called it Masked Rider in Power Rangers, in I want to say season 2 or season 3 of Power Rangers. And it didn't go over really well. Oh, this is Kamen Rider O's. We just hit the 10th anniversary of this show. This show is great. I have the belt for this in the other room. I have a few belts.
That's amazing.
Yeah, still not partying and doing cool stuff. Instead, now I buy belts that make sounds. I
mean, I'm very into it.
But yeah, this is great. This is pretty good for 10-year-old CG.
Yeah. And also the costumes are just incredible. It's like weird Sonic Catman.
Yeah. So yeah, they did a backdoor pilot in Power Rangers, and then they did a season of, I think it was Dragon Knight, which actually ended up winning an Emmy for its action footage of all things.
That's incredible.
And I think that was one season, but it didn't do well toys wise, and so I don't think they continued it. And all of these shows are really dependent on the toy sales. To justify their existences. So yeah, I made a little fan site as my like first Contentful project, and like we can click into things, and there are pages, and this is just on henshin.shy.dev. It's a little slow right now because it's still warming. So it's a serverless project, so it's up on AWS. And I don't have a warming function because I don't expect to really get any traffic for this website.
For folks who are new to serverless, what does all of that mean? Like, I guess we should start with what is serverless, and then we'll go into the concept of warming.
Yeah, so serverless is let me actually just pull it up. If AWS or I guess we can look at the serverless framework. So serverless is kind of like an architecture style where you have a little compute node or like a server in the cloud that's running your code, and that thing gets spawned essentially when you request it. So it lives for exactly as long as you hit that endpoint, and then when it's done, the server kind of just disappears and dies and goes away. So for mine, it's lasting about like 4 or 5 milliseconds or 500 milliseconds. And then it disappears. So it's rather than having like a server that is just sitting there and like waiting for requests to come in and it's just kind of passively on all the time. With serverless, you only have the computer like existing for the moments that it's being used, and then it kind of goes away.
Right.
Cool. Which is really cool. And there are a lot of different ways to do serverless architecture patterns. Because this is a bad site from 3 years ago, I just dumped Flask onto an AWS node and then called it a day. But if I was going to re-engineer this, I would actually break it down into a bunch of different functions. So maybe each page is, there's only really two things that are going on. There's like the home page and then a show page and maybe some filtering. So it's really just a page render that's happening. But usually you would use serverless for like, maybe you've got a one-time computation that needs to happen. Maybe you want to add someone to a newsletter and you need a little bit of computation to sit in front of that. You could build up like a little serverless function to handle that for you. Or it ends up getting used, I think, in conjunction with static sites fairly regularly in the Contentful world as like hey, you've got this static HTML going and you need to make the static HTML feel a little more dynamic or feel a little more not like just a web page, and you can attach these serverless handlers to do things for you and jump in.
There's one place I link anyone who watched our show last night with Gregor going through OctoKit, the GitHub API client. That's another place I see serverless used quite a lot, where like you've got a static site, but for whatever reason you need to have a OAuth dance somewhere, like an entirely client side, like GitHub stats site that requires you to auth your account, and so then you'll get like an entirely static site that will do the OAuth dance via serverless, and then like it's barely costing you anything to have the dynamic stuff that you need.
We see a lot, or I feel like the use case I see the most, that's like the most compelling, is with a lot of direct to consumer brands, you have they have like their website and they're selling their product, and so the website itself will be static, so just straight up HTML, CSS, maybe some JavaScript. And that's running entirely on your computer, and you do it that way. Static is really great, and it's kind of come back into vogue because the server that's sending you the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript doesn't really have to do much. It's just like, oh, you want this thing? Cool, here, have this thing
with some HTML on it. Like,
it doesn't have to dynamically render the page for you. It doesn't have to think. It's just like, cool, you want this thing? Here you go. And then they need to handle like checkout or cart management or stuff like that, and so they'll attach like a serverless function handler on top of that, and so they'll when you hit add to cart, it'll send a request out to a server, and that server will like hold your kind of calculate and handle that, and then when the page reloads, the client side JavaScript will reach out and be like, hey, what's in my cart, and it'll re-render the cart, and then you hit checkout and it'll move you through that checkout flow, and you get that really, really fast front end site and the actual like practical functions that you need to sell things.
Right. And also, again, like if you're just dabbling in the web and building your own stuff, like it's not like server rendered web pages and you're paying for a VPS all the time. Sorry, it's full screen. So you mentioned warm-up functions, which people who are using free Heroku and that kind of thing may also be familiar with. What is that, and why is that important?
Yeah, so the oh gosh, you're quizzing me on something that I was really knowledgeable about 3 years ago. Let me just pull up my blog post that I wrote about this.
Whilst you're doing that, let me introduce you all to why I was laughing whilst I was showing us that. I get these Quora digests, which are my little favorite bit of joy for the week, where Quora just sends you a highlight of like some random questions that have been on the site this week. And while you were talking, I got the subject line in my email: how good is Elon Musk at programming? And it just I just can't with that website. Sorry. So you were blogging a lot.
Yeah. So I wrote a little blog post. Let me see if I have a good line about it in here. Oh man, why serverless is a good idea. I don't know if I think serverless is a good idea anymore.
Hey, when we ask you to review old code, we only ask you to review the code, not your opinions.
Yeah. So basically AWS moves your code into kind of like it'll hold it in a place where the server, if it's warm, it'll hold it in a place where it doesn't take a moment to kind of get the code loaded and then get the code going. If it's not getting used, they'll kind of just move it to somewhere where it'll take like a couple seconds for the code to come up and get going. And then it runs the serverless function. It's kind of like I guess RAM versus hard drive is the way I would think about it. Is if your serverless code is being used regularly, AWS will hold it in their equivalent of RAM. Their petabytes and petabytes of functionally RAM. Yeah. And if it's not being used, they'll move it over to the hard drive. So it'll take a little bit longer to get going. And so one of the tricks that people will use is they'll just artificially hit the endpoint to just make sure it stays in that warm state in kind of the RAM equivalent. And so for this project, I use this library called Zappa, which is a really interesting library that just kind of acts as like a middle layer between Lambda and Python, and it'll kind of just take a look at your Flask code and then like go online and hit all your endpoints and do configure it all for you, and it'll help you do like the custom domain management, and it'll also be like, how often do you want us to keep this endpoint warm? And so they'll set up a CloudWatch, which is like AWS's, I want to say it's like, I'm going to simplify it, but it's like the AWS version of cron. It can do a bunch of other stuff, but in this instance, I'm basically just using it as a cron server to like, hey, every 4 minutes, just ping the endpoint. And that way it'll force the application to stay warm. That does also mean that I'm making about 10,000 function calls a month at a minimum, which is like $1.20.
Which is pretty good.
No big deal. Compared to like something like Netlify, which is free for the kind of traffic I'm driving on this website, I ended up just turning it off because I can't be bothered to deal with $1.20 charge for 3 years for a website that I don't really anticipate anyone going to. As well, unless you're reading my tutorial.
You mean the web's most valuable Henshin resource?
I mean, I stole all of this content from TV tropes. It's even sourced at the very bottom, information sourced from TV tropes. So,
nice.
I didn't write this.
Perfect. Awesome. So should we get into the? So yeah, actually, that's I guess a good question. So this whole thing's built on Contentful. So what content from this are you pulling in from Contentful? Awesome.
Yeah. So on the Contentful side, I have a content model. So content models are kind of like the structures of data, and so the content model is getting used in a couple different places. So we can go back to the home page and we can click into these. So here's my content. It's all right here. So we've got shows, we've got characters, we've got that little introductory string that's like up here and explaining what the concept of the website is. And so if we go into content, we can click into show, and we can see that each show has a title, it has air dates, it has, what type, is it Super Sentai, is it Kamen Rider, it has a text, it has character references, and then it has like a slug, and then it has our like asset, which is the thing I'm excited about, is the video. And so we're actually using the content model in a couple different ways here, and I think this is where Contentful gets really interesting, is where you're not specifically saying, hey, make a page for me. It's like, hey, I have data and I want the data structured in a certain way, and then your front end is like, cool, this is great data, let me use it in this way and this way, and use that same data object a couple different times. So like in the front, in the home page, it's just like a list. It's got the the title, it's got the air date, it's got the video, and we can do some filtering, if we want to filter by that type, so we can cross-reference like the type and kind of just pull out just the types themselves. And then when we click into it, we get kind of that expanded version. So we get the full text, we get the reference of where I stole the text from, because it's important to attribute
properly source.
You shouldn't steal that stuff without commenting where you got it.
Unless it's for a blog post, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, but then even then you do a quote, right? Like with a little. Like,
I'm joking. Don't steal content from the internet.
Yeah. And so we can go in and we can edit this stuff fairly easily. And since this is a serverless site, we can actually see it update live. So like if I want to, maybe bold this, and this is in Markdown. So this is another interesting thing that we changed our best practices around. So in Contentful, we have all sorts of different types of fields. There's 7 major fields here. So we've got text, which can be short text or long text, and long text is our kind of standard Markdown field. Now, one of the complaints that we used to get was so for non-technical, and this is kind of where the dichotomy of the needs of the developer and the needs of the non-technical person, the editorial team, kind of are a little different to each other. So, Joe, have you used a WYSIWYG editor recently, or I'm assuming you've used one before, but
No, I haven't used one recently. So I put a blog post into Contentful last week.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I've used one recently. I did it in Markdown when I did the blog post last week as well.
So Markdown as a format is really, I feel like, familiar and friendly to developers, right? Like, we're just good to go.
It's the language of GitHub, right? Like,
it's the language of GitHub. I still have to pull up a GitHub cheat or a Markdown cheat sheet, but that's not a big deal. My brain doesn't have any problems looking at this and being like, he was saying the Slack message editor is WYSIWYG.
We won't talk about that new editor.
Not if you turn it off. You could turn that off and you can go back to Markdown and it's better.
It's a terrible editor. It's really a bad job.
But yeah, so when you're in Markdown isn't really great for editorial teams because they don't know it or they're not comfortable with it or they're just used to a certain experience. And WYSIWYG itself is, from a developer standpoint, kind of is rough, right? Because what you're doing with a WYSIWYG editor is you're really just giving non-technical folks the ability to generate HTML. So even though they don't know that they're programming, they're writing code. And that's dangerous. That's really dangerous, right? Because maybe they click the bold and unclick the bold button in a bunch of different ways, and then you have like 30 different strong unstrongs for like maybe 2 or 3 bold words, or maybe they're like fiddling and they're like, oh, I can't get this image quite aligned. Let me just click into the thing and look at it in the HTML mode, and maybe they edit a thing and they forget to close a div tag, and now your entire front end is collapsing because you've got a unclosed div that's being pulled in by by the non-technical team. So it's not structured and it's not defensible. So with us, we wanted to kind of have the best of both worlds experience. We wanted to build a field that test field. We wanted to build a field that let you have that kind of WYSIWYG experience, but when you took a look at it behind the scenes, it would poop out an object, an object that you could iterate over and kind of use as a structured bit of data, and you can convert that data object into HTML yourself. You do that on, whenever you're building the server or building the page, and ideally that's a little safer rather than just using this kind of WYSIWYG that gives you HTML. So if I was going to redo this, I would switch it from a Markdown field to a rich text field. And we've got a bunch of like fancy contentful stuff that you could do with that too. You can link to other entries and stuff like that. As well. And let me pull up the adulting.dev website if that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you should definitely tell us about adulting.dev because I think that's relevant. And funnily enough, speaking of adulting.dev, my first exposure to Contentful was with my personal business website, Interactive, which was built by Kevin on Contentful.
Really funny. I'm glad that I helped persuade Kevin to use Contentful stuff. So adulting.dev is this conference I organize in New York. It's like a affordable one-day conference for young developers. If you're in the UK, you've probably heard of You Got This, which is Kevin's conference. I completely ripped Kevin off with his blessing.
You worked together on it a bit, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I reached out and I'm like, Kevin, I want to do this in America. This is a really good content idea. How do I do this in America? And he's like, yeah, go for it. And then we worked together to do a virtual one a few weeks ago or months ago. What is time?
There is a virtual You Got This coming up. You got this from your couch, I believe.
His branding is so good. Kevin is so talented. So this is a website that's entirely in rich text now. So instead of Markdown fields, so if we look into it, we can click into like one of these content blocks, so maybe the inclusion program, and it's going to be that like WYSIWYG editor, right? And so when I hit bold, a thing is going to stay bold. If I underline a thing, it's going to be underlined, and it's going to look like an editor expects it to look. And then when we go, I'm just going to pull up our GraphQL endpoint because that's going to be the easiest way to actually look at the data. When we go take a look at this data, it's going to be an object. So let me pull up the API keys. There's our space. Sorry, everyone, for making you watch me do API key stuff. I know this is a little boring.
Sorry, whilst you're doing this, I'm just we had a guest on last night who put up some really great first-timer issues on the OctoKit project, and some people in the Hacktoberfest Discord were all just talking about struggling with with finding projects, and so I just went to throw that in there for them.
Well, if anyone wants to help me adjust the colors, I have no idea what to make the color scheme look like for. So this is graphical.
What's the Hacktoberfest colors?
I have no idea. Isn't it
weird? That weird purple. Hang on, I think I can get this the hex code from this label on Gregor's repo. No, I can't.
Content.
Whatever. Get a nice Halloweeny orange, pumpkin orange.
ID. Need this.
Adobe Culer for color selection. What? Just anywhere on the screen here? Sorry, Hugh was recommending me something.
Oh yeah. I'm never really quite happy with it. I always need a designer to kind of like hold my hand a little bit when I'm doing content. That's what I labeled it. Great job. And then it's commands JSON. By this. Okay, so this is our so this is GraphQL here. So what I've done is I've just made a little query that it goes into the Contentful API and it asks for, hey, I want one content block, and since I have a couple different content blocks, I need to tell it explicitly what's the ID of the content block that I want. So the inclusion program that we're using, I just grabbed the entry ID. And then I dived into the definition because GraphQL, one of my favorite things about it is it's self-documenting here.
Right.
I just was like, hey, what are the things I can pull?
Controversial name to use or term to use, self-documenting.
This is kind of terrible that I named it content because it's now content block content in Contentful, which isn't confusing at all. So, but yeah, so when I make this request for this rich text field, in the Contentful side, your editorial team is seeing this kind of experience that they're used to. This feels familiar. This feels safe. It makes sense. And then from my end, I'm getting it as a where is graphical? I'm getting it as a JSON blob, right? So this is structured data. This is defensible. I know it's not going anywhere. Like it's I've got my URL here. We can break it down. I've got my hyperlinks and stuff like that. And so it's maybe this isn't the most interesting blob. Let's see what the most interesting blob. Maybe let's do the about blob.
Yeah.
So let me get
Hugh just got himself banned in chat.
Oh no.
Hugh, you've got 60 seconds to post that link again from now.
Yeah. So this is a more interesting one. This is our about block. So we've got our paragraph, we've got some lists, we've got a link, and so it gets broken down into kind of that structured data. So hey, this is a paragraph. Hey, this is text. Hey, this is a list. Hey, this is so it's structured, it's safe, you can iterate over this, and you can convert this into HTML yourself, and we have a bunch of renderers that'll take care of it for you, and you can attach like stylings and stuff like it. So if you want to maybe say like, hey, I've got like a map here, like this is a URL, I want you to eat this URL and turn it into a map or a YouTube video or whatever, you're able to do things like that. So it's a lot more powerful than just a standard markdown field, while also being a lot more presentable to a non-technical person. So yeah, I guess the first thing I would change about that website is I'd probably switch it all over to rich text. Oh, let me make sure I've closed my Slack. You all don't want to see my Slack.
I didn't say anything. You're all good.
Yeah, so I would change that over to rich text, I guess, to start. Just use kind of a more modern feature there. And I guess the other thing I would do is, instead of using the Python SDK, is I would use this GraphQL query instead, because right now what I'm doing with
using the REST endpoint on that,
I'm using the Python SDK, which is using the REST endpoint for me.
Cool.
So where did I put this code?
I did have a shy Zappa Contentful.
There we go. So yeah, if we dig into this, I'm making I'm connecting to my Contentful client, which is fine. I would just leave that as normal. And then I'm, requesting the entry ID for the intro string. And then I'm also requesting the show. So it's 2 requests that I'm doing here. And these requests are going to be punting over a bunch of different nonsense as well. So if we go take a look at this in GraphQL, we can see what exactly we're getting every time we make a request. So let me go ahead and just switch to the space. Okay. So here we are and we're looking at specifically, we can actually just pull this ID from the code that we were in. So yeah, we've got this entry ID. So we can, let's take a look at it. So let's do a query and this is an intro string with an ID of that. And yeah, so if we start typing, we can kind of see actually what all of the things that we would get are. So intro string. Nice. So we've got we've got the actual text. We've got maybe a type. We've got a title. We've got all of the stuff in the sys, which is kind of our metadata-y stuff. Let's take a look at what's in here. So we've got in sys, we've got an ID, we've got space ID, we've got environment ID, publish, first.
Yeah, it's like we spoke a little bit earlier about some of the things that makes GraphQL different to REST. The fact that you can get all this information in one request, and you don't have to traverse endpoints and make like a multiple request is a big part of it.
So we're getting all of this in that SDK request, and I only need maybe this.
Yeah.
So and so it's a much smaller request. What did I mess up there? End of file.
You missing a parent? Yeah.
I maybe only need these 2 things, and that's it.
Right.
And so you can kind of. So on a lightweight website, making 2 or 3 SDK calls isn't really the end of the world. But on a serverless site, where you have maybe millions of requests going, or you're running the server
per request as well, which is like different to VPS, right?
Yep, and you're waiting for, you do request 1, you do request 2, and maybe you need request 2 to be dependent on a piece of information from request 1, so you have to wait. And that's just like time that the server is sitting there. And since you're paying on a serverless function exactly by what you're using, that gets expensive really quickly. And so if you could do all of it in one go and make sure that the payload that you're getting is as small as it possibly could be, you could save a lot of cost on your serverless function. So I would definitely switch it from that into this if I was going to rebuild it.
Yeah, but I guess at the time, so you built this 3 years ago. I guess GraphQL was around then, but it was like it was still very new at that point. Like there were relatively few companies who were providing big GraphQL APIs. Would Contentful even have had a GraphQL API at that point?
We were a couple months away from launching our GraphQL at that point, but it was only available to enterprise customers for us. Now it's free for everyone, so anyone can use it today. Yeah. Which is also makes it more fun because I don't want to write I want to write about things that everyone can use, and so I get more excited when you can just clone my repo and use it. And so I wouldn't necessarily have used it then.
So a fundamental thing about this app we've spoken about, we've had a couple of people bring on Rails apps and Django apps. Yeah. We haven't had anything, I guess, in the Flask kind of like family of web frameworks yet. Yeah. You want to briefly talk about like the technology choice here and like what Flask is and why it might be different from like the other frameworks I just mentioned?
Yeah, so Flask is kind of like the small, lightweight Python framework. So Flask is pretty bare bones when you get it. The only thing that it really has is routing built into it. So it's really fast to get started with. It's really easy to kind of just do things with. I feel like Django is the other kind of major Python web framework that gets used. And Django has a lot of really great stuff built into it. But I find that I end up ripping a lot of the stuff out of Django. And for me, it's really I want my projects to be educational. And so I don't want folks to get confused by like, what's the web servery stuff going on? And I feel that way, especially with Rails. Like Rails is really
Right.
opinionated about like how you have to do things. And I have a funny Rails story. I had a Rails interview where they're like, "Hey, we're trying to hire a Rails developer. Do you know Rails?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And then I spent a day cramming Rails, and they did not give me that job. And then I told them no, and I got a different job working for them.
God, cramming for tech interviews.
Yeah, but like Rails is very much like you have to know what Rails wants you to do, or it won't let you, and it's very convention driven. Whereas Flask is like, yeah, whatever, do your own thing, like go wild, go crazy, and for lightweight projects, it's really nice. It's got a really robust ecosystem of like plugins. So if you want to, add authentication, you can install a Python plugin to do that. If you want to add database connections, you go install SQL Alchemy, and it kind of just works. And for me Flask is my go-to choice because it's a speed thing. I don't have to worry about a whole bunch of stuff, and I can just get it out, get it really fast. Like this entire project is, this is functionally a blog, right? Like it's basically just a blog with a bit of filtering. And this project itself is maybe less than 100 lines of code, which I really like about it. And it's it's getting all of that content by reaching out to Contentful, so it could be smaller as well.
That's awesome. The Hacktoberfest Discord has just shown up. Hi folks, thanks for joining.
Hey everyone, how y'all doing? You're late. We started we started almost an hour ago. Y'all gotta make up earlier.
They were all arguing about OctoKit issues. Cool. So we're talking a little bit about what you do differently, I guess, on the Contentful side. I guess on the fast side, given that it's such a simple app, there's not a whole lot you'd write differently. Was there any like?
I would honestly actually I wouldn't use serverless. Is I think the big thing for this. I would make this project as so Zappa is the serverless library that I ended up using, and Zappa is great, but Zappa is also really, really heavy now. Zappa is really nice for like managing the AWS stuff for you. But now I've learned a lot more of the AWS Lambda and the API gateway stuff, and I can configure it myself. So I don't really need to use this framework, although it is a really nice framework if you're just getting into serverless code and you want some help to get things going. This is really nice. So if I was going to use serverless, I would just go straight to AWS, and I would use the serverless stuff there. But realistically, I would just make this a static site. I would make it so Flask has a static site generator called Flask Frozen, which is what we're using for the adulting.dev website. So what that does is it just like renders the page once, and then it captures it, and it puts that HTML, output it into a directory, and then your edge host like Netlify or GitHub Pages would deliver it for you. And so I would do the same thing here. I would have Flask Frozen basically just trawl the website and be like, cool, like these are the pages, and then just poop them out and kind of store them, because this website is not changing particularly frequently. We bolded a thing here and now it's bold, but realistically,
it looks great. That was a good change. Very tasteful.
Yeah, I don't need to. I'm not touching this at all, and so just in terms of like keeping that $1.20 cost down, I would make this static. Like the adulting.dev website drives way more traffic than this website does, and this website costs me more money than the adulting.dev website does.
Nice, that's awesome, super cool. So for those of you just turned up, I guess you have missed the vast bulk of the stream. We're very sorry. With that cleared, or not, we'll talk to you then. But yeah, I guess that kind of brings us to the end of what we had prepared. Is there anything that you want to chat about or throw out to the lovely viewers before we call it an end?
Yeah, just another plug for our Contentful conference. If you're looking for more Contentful stuff, we do live streams every Tuesday at 11 New York time. I'm trying to convince John to join us. So if you want to see John stream again, definitely check those out. Or Joe.
Those of you who missed one of those ones. We will hopefully we're going to chat about that today, I believe. So hopefully we'll get that sorted. I've just posted a link again to the fast forward conference. And if folks have questions for you, I guess your Twitter is the best place. That's not your Twitter.
Twitter will work. You can also email me at shy@contentful.com as well. Yeah, whatever's more convenient, I'm happy to.
Where's the best place for people to grab your streams? I guess the Contentful YouTube or Twitch?
Yeah, Contentful YouTube is the best place, or contentful.com/developers. We have links to our streams on that page as well.
With that, because the YouTube links are nonsense.
Our developer portal is like probably the best place to go to get started. If you're looking to actually learn GraphQL, we put out a GraphQL course as well. That's GraphQL and React. That's really excellent. That very cool. I'm a fan of, and we'll hook you up with swag if you actually do the course. We have a little prize. It was some swag that we'll give you.
No, don't say that here. We'll get back into the Hacktoberfest Discord, and the swag swarm will turn up.
Well, it's just stickers. It's nothing. It's not a T-shirt. So. But yeah, if you build something with GraphQL and it's cool, it's either like you do the course or you build something in general. We'll hook you up with stickers. So
nice, that's awesome, cool. Well, thank you so much for spending this your morning on the show with us.
Sure, there's no one else I'd rather spend my morning with on a Friday. So
that big Friday energy. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you on your channel soon. So enjoy your weekend. I'll do the awkward backstage shuffle now and do my wrap up. So I'll see you shortly.
Later.
So thank you so much again, Shai. Just to recap the things we went through, we spoke about Shai's developer journey, how he got into developer evangelism, some of the cool content and things he was able to do as an evangelist, and the reasons that he decided that evangelism was for him versus software engineering. And then we got to look at his project, get into a whole bunch of Contentful, look at a whole bunch of GraphQL queries. If you want to know more about GraphQL, like Shai covered a lot in this show, but we also got really in depth with Ender Phelan in our GraphBack episode last week. So you can find more there on our Twitch channel. And as I said, I posted a bunch of cool resources. So you've got the next week is the Contentful Fast Forward conference, which is totally free. And there's a bunch of courses and stuff on that developer site that we showed as well. And hopefully we will get John Britton, our founder, over on the Contentful stream very soon. So this is our second show for today. We've got one more show coming up. For those of you who came over to us from the Hacktoberfest Discord and were very late, this show is in 5 hours. The show's in 5 hours. It's at 10 p.m. European time, 8 p.m. UTC, 4 p.m. East Coast time. That show is with Frida Casas, who is a Rails.dev alum. So we'll be talking about Frida's developer journey and also talking about her time at Fortbot. And then we're going to be doing issue safari. So I know some folks in the Hacktoberfest Discord have been struggling for issues at the moment. We're going to be doing issue safari, where we go and look and talk about issues that are currently available for Hacktoberfest, and we'll be doing that on the Ruby for Good collection of projects. So that's going to be a lot of fun. They're great projects to get involved with. They have a positive part and place in the world, and so we'll be doing that tonight at 5 p.m. So let me give you a teaser of the schedule to come, because this website that I'm currently linking to only shows you the schedule for this week currently, so it's completely useless because we're nearly at the end of the week. So let me tell you what's coming up next week. So first of all, Shai is still in the StreamYard, so he's going to be very disappointed. Well, maybe he won't be disappointed me. I doubt that hostile. But next week we have Daniel from Strappy.js coming on the show. Sorry, Shai. Another headless CMS. So Monday, super exciting. We've got Simon from Rails.dev. Why am I struggling with that? Simon, our Rails developer who builds the Rails.dev website, is coming on Monday. He's our first show on Monday. We're going to hang out with Simon and hopefully do some Rails stuff. That afternoon, we've got Pterodactyl. We've got Anand Kapoor. He's at HashiCorp. He was with us this week. He's coming back with his co-maintainer Dane to talk about the Pterodactyl project. Pterodactyl is an open source system for managing game servers, so it's a super cool project, and we're going to be talking about that. Tuesday morning, we've got Erica Heidi from DigitalOcean. She's a technical writer. We're going to be talking about docs and docs contributions. Tuesday midday, we've got Jason Etkovich, who is one of my favorite people in the world. He's at GitHub and he builds all kinds of really cool projects. He worked on Learning Lab, he worked on Probot. He's does a lot of the cool automation things. So if you enjoyed the show with Gregor last night on OctoKit, Jason's going to be another great show for you. Then we've got Sarah Guffels from Microsoft. She works on a lot of education stuff. She also used to be at GitHub. Lots of GitHub people on the show this week. Sarah's a program manager at Microsoft. That's Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday, he's in the chat, so I can embarrass him again. Wednesday is our show with Matt himself, with the community manager of DigitalOcean, the person putting in the hot fixes to the Hacktoberfest website. Very lucky to have him on the show Wednesday morning. Then we have Daniel Ferry from Strappy.js, Node.js focused headless CMS. Thursday, we've got Adrian Howard from Courier, and then we've got Jennifer Davis from Microsoft. She's in the DevOps world, so that's going to be a very DevOps-focused show. Friday, Josh Dezilak from Orbit, Stefan Young from Customer.io, and Corey Alexander to finish off our week. So that's a little bit of the preview of the things to come next week. I'll get that schedule up over the weekend. Matt said we're going to have a train wreck ramble stream. It's going to be good. They're the best kind of streams. That's what you come to Twitch for, right? Just to watch two people ramble and spew nonsense. If you wanted polished content, you'd go to YouTube. That's what we're here for. So final thing from me. If you have a question that you would like answered by one of our guests, you can submit that to race.dev Hacktoberfest and we'll get that answered for you. And then if you need to level up your developer career, you want to level up your developer career, you're looking for your first developer job, you're looking to change careers, you're looking for promotion, whatever it is, you can come to race.dev where we will match you with our coaches and get you the help you need to get to the experience that you need to achieve your goals. We're completely free whilst you're in early access and you can find out more. Race.dev. So that's all from me for this episode. I will see you all in 5 hours. I'm going to go have a nap. It's going to be great. And I'll see you on tonight's stream. Enjoy your afternoon. If you don't join us tonight, hopefully we'll see you next week. Have a good one and have a lovely day.